All right, sounds good. How much Corona conversation did you have so far?
Let's be quiet for 1 second here.
Okay, sorry.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Run It Back, and I am joined by Igor Kurganov to watch some High Stakes Poker Season 5. If you are new to the show, in this show we have a watch party, sometimes with wine, sometimes with coffee. Whatever time zone you are in, find the beverage suitable for that hour. Igor, welcome to the show. First and foremost, how are you doing, and what is sort of the suitable beverage for this occasion in your parts of the world?
Thank you. I mean, water is always suitable, but people have just been, I guess, beer time is every time right now, right?
I mean, it's Corona time. There's no rules anymore. Like, that's basically how it is.
Yeah.
Did
we actually figure out if Corona has gone up or down in demand?
Oh, as far as the actual beverage, I mean, I don't know. And what do they always say? Any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, that'll be a good test actually for that phrase right now.
Exactly. Igor,
I'll try to look it up.
We are watching Season 5 of High Stakes Poker. We got Tom Dwan in the mix, Negreanu, Esfandiari, Viffer, Doyle Brunson, a whole bunch of your favorites, and I think everyone's favorites. Let us know in the chat, if you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you are, who your favorite players are on the show. Let us know what your favorite memories are of High Stakes Poker. And if you have any questions for Igor, the man, the myth, the legend, this guy knows everything. He is the poker strategy genius. The more he drinks, the better his strategy conversations go. You guys can find evidence of that on the Poker Central YouTube channel. But please don't hesitate to chime in and let us know what you think. We're going to be watching some epic hands. And of course, don't forget to like this video, which helps us tremendously with reaching a bigger audience to spread the love of all this content with. Igor, first and foremost, the question I always basically start with is, what are your memories of High Stakes Poker? Were you watching it in the moment, and sort of were you a fan of the show back then?
Yeah, huge fan of the show. I think it was the thing that kept like making me excited about poker, just like throughout the years that it ran. I probably didn't start as it started. What was its first year, like 2006 or something? Probably?
They were first taped, I believe, in 2005. So they must
so
have,
yeah. Yeah, I only started in 2009 watching it probably, but then I mean, the action was so exciting at the time. You just didn't see stakes like that, especially on TV with whole cards. Every single player became kind of like a hero because just bluffing for those amounts didn't depend on knowing that it's a correct bluff in a solver. It depended on just actually having the balls to pull off the bluff. So it was just really exciting because of that. And I watched probably all of the episodes at least like twice, I imagine, at the time.
Right. So as far as you saying you started watching in 2009, is that when you started taking poker more seriously? And did you ever come close to playing these kinds of stakes while it was still airing, or did you have most of your curve towards the high stakes in the later years? Because just so you know, for reference, season 7, the final season, was filmed in 2011. So to give you a bit of a framework there.
Right. No. Then I only joined the high stakes later, really. I think. Yeah, in 2012, I had my first big tournament result. And then in 2013, I started playing cash games and high stakes cash over the years.
So this is basically something that you would be dreaming about back when you were watching it, which is kind of cool to look at.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
To look at it now through the prism of all the information that you have sucked up right now and seeing how insanely loose and wild all the plays were back in those days. Because that's obviously the thing that stands out the most, right?
Yeah, I mean, it goes. I'm not entirely sure actually. I mean, there's definitely plays that you don't see anymore, but at the same time, some of the post-flop action that you see nowadays, I think, is even more aggressive. Just people end up over jamming the river nowadays more frequently than it has ever been the case. I think at any point in poker, except maybe outside of when Isildur was playing heads up for the first time, and he was kind of the first guy to just do that all the time. But outside of that, like you just nowadays see these turnover bets, river over jams, and the action I would say got more aggressive. It's just that people stayed in pre-flop with all sorts of hands. So you had way more hands and you had like just by necessity kind of just way more hands getting to next streets down the line, which worked because everyone else was doing it too. So it wasn't that bad because of it.
Right.
Yeah, but really, like, I think the main thing that makes it so exciting is that these are people just doing it because they for themselves believe that it's right, and they need to, without having the certainty that it's right, find kind of the confidence or just the balls to pull something off, which is different to today.
Yeah, and I mean, ballsy plays are the most fun to watch. Right now we're seeing
Exactly.
Viffer against Phil Locke, Viffer making a show out of it. Viffer has queen high, Locke misses his flush draw, but Locke is calling bets out of position. 71,000 in the middle here. Let's turn up the volume and then hear in on what's being said.
Funny around the Mideast. You do that in Yemen, they'll scream.
Viffer tosses in 50 grand.
Viffer raised before the flop, checked on the flop, bet the turn, and now he's betting the river. Could have eights fully, could have nothing, which is what he has.
That's a hand people nowadays just don't call with,
I know it's
ever. But he's actually considering it because he's going to talk to him and figure it out. It's amazing.
This will be the most painful. This is going to be really painful, right? When I see that you had like 6, 7 of clubs or some stupid thing. This is going to hurt a lot. If I fold, I'm going to be in a lot of pain for years. All right, years of pain. I take the years of pain.
Let the pain begin.
Please show it.
Showing them anyway.
Please show it.
He's showing them anyway.
He's not showing them.
You can see one.
This one, this one, this one.
Okay.
Good
Now flip the
fold.
jack.
Dwan got it.
Does not want to see the
Queen
jack.
hearts, jack of hearts.
He wanted to see the queen.
So yeah, you guys, if you're just tuning in, we are watching Season 5 of High Stakes Poker. All your favorite characters here in this lineup, Viffer and Tom Dwan together. I mean, what more can you really wish for? It's Igor Kurganov and myself breaking down the action, but also having some fun along the way and taking your questions. And we got some questions coming in already, so I'll give those to Igor as we're going live on YouTube and Facebook. And don't forget to like this video. Colton is asking you, Igor. He says he started playing poker 2 years ago, crushing the $100 to $300 buy-in range tournaments and won 3 cash, so probably playing live. He says, I'm wanting to start studying GTO. How should I go about adding that to my game? So this is probably a question many people have, so I figured it's good to start with that right away.
Sure. I mean, I think it's the right question. It's always beneficial to... I mean, you kind of have to understand GTO, as people nowadays say, to be able to then adjust away from it. Otherwise, like, how are you adjusting if you don't know what your like pole in the center is?
Right.
So I think it's good to do that. That said, if you're playing live poker, all of the other factors will pretty much always at those stakes before you enter like 25Ks and over. The other factors like, is this a guy who would do this? How does he feel and such, like, are still more important than GTO poker. And like, you should pay way more attention to that than GTO. So, but it's good to start early, I guess. And therefore, yeah, join a site maybe, like, I don't know if you guys do promotions here, but like there's a few sites online you can join. And they have videos that explain how to use these solvers. And then through that, you will probably get a pretty good idea. It's still fairly tricky. It's not as straightforward. You looked up a situation, now you know how to play poker. The idea then with the solvers will just be, which I imagine is explained there, is like try to find the patterns in the game. Like, why is this hand chosen in this situation? And then try to like create 50 to 100 rules of thumb in your own mind around it. And then like try to weigh those up as situations change.
So let me just sort of break that down for myself. What you're basically saying is that, yes, it is good to start early with the GTO, but yes, it is also very important to keep working on the fundamentals of the game itself before getting into that, because there's a lot to learn still without even going into GTO, as far as, you know, understanding your opponents and having good fundamentals as far as, you know, bet sizing and stuff like that.
Well, I think if you with fundamentals mean bet sizing and actions and such, then like all of that is part of this theoretically optimal way to play poker. So that part I think you just do via the game theoretical optimal way. But the other fundamental aspects of live poker, let's just call them the live aspects, are more important, I believe, which is selecting tables, knowing your opponents, figuring out what type of player someone is, and really paying attention to this guy never bluffs these situations. This guy always bets this size when he has it or when he doesn't have it. All of this is just way more important, I think, in mid stakes and low stakes live poker.
So would you
same as like bankroll management
Mm-hmm.
and assembling, kind of like having a crew of people that you can interact about poker with.
So would you say the thought process and the approach changes drastically if we go into online poker, which I know during the quarantine, and shout out to everyone staying at home during quarantine, online poker has gotten a lot more popular all across the world. Would you say that method and approach changes drastically if you would apply that to the same stakes online?
So I think as you go up in stakes, and online poker is basically like a 10th, so like a 1K buy-in live is about as tough as maybe nowadays like a 20th is about as tough as like a $50, maybe even like a $20 tournament online.
Wow.
So as you get to play 10 of those at the same time, so you kind of put in the buy-ins anyway. So as you encounter players that go less with their feelings, you are required to not now try to understand those feelings, but to try to understand this theoretical approach to poker. So I think it just depends on the players you play against. If you play against people that just have these very strong tendencies, then you mostly don't need this theoretically optimal approach to poker. But that just doesn't happen anymore if you play $100 buy-ins online plus, for example. Then you actually need the fundamentals as well.
Yeah, very helpful. Great answers. A shout out to everyone in the chat who is chiming in with their questions. I see Sture, I see Egeman, I see Colton. Colton, thanks for staying with us, and a whole bunch of other people in there on YouTube. Manuel on Facebook, Federico, Richard, Bobby from Texas. What's up, Bobby? Joseph there as well from California. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know if this is coffee time for you, if this is maybe time for a glass of wine. We're watching High Stakes Poker Season 5 and taking all your questions. Next one here, question on YouTube. Igor.
I love Dario Minieri in this. It's just 3-bet Queen 7 offsuit, 13K, wears a big golden cross, tiny guy. It's just, yeah.
I mean,
I think there is a truth to that. Obviously, there is interesting people nowadays in poker, but like, again, I think there is a truth to those who were characters at the time, which is in part because, like they just all needed to figure it out by themselves way more often.
But Dario, that made you smile. Do you have do you have Dario stories? Do you have memories of him? And obviously, he was a
very little. We crossed paths only very, very few times, and also only in the tournament circuit.
Right. There's an epic blow up of his, I believe, was like the 08 main event where he was chip leader on day 4 and busted on day 4. That was sort of Dario's style, swinging for the fences. Question here on YouTube, Igor: how important are live reads in your thought process when you play high stakes live tournaments or cash games?
Again, it depends on the player I play against. If I'm playing against top regular player like, say, Nick Petrangelo, then live reads just make up way less. Especially, actually, Nick is nearly a bad example because he is so good at masking. Like he will just not even interrupt a story that he's telling someone else while over jamming the turn all in. Like he really is just very good at that. But so against those players, it's less important. In a field like the Triton Million, for example, where you had business guys as well as poker pros, but also old school poker pros, it was more important again. And it does take up, it doesn't necessarily like always play out that you only at the river try to gather their comfort level or something like that. It's more that you take in these little bits of information along the way. Like, for example, this player doesn't always snap check the turn to you after he check called the flop, and now he does. And like, oh, does that remove some hands from the range? So like it's like slight adjustments that you can only do. And usually, to be like very precise about it, it's like before you think, oh, he has some hand 100% of the time, and then you reduce it. Oh, I think there's a chance he has it less, so you reduce it down to like 50% of the time or something like that, and you try to picture it all in your head.
Speaking of Dario Minieri, he made it 9,200 before the flop with the old 6-4 offsuit. Elezra called with King 10 offsuit, 2-pair against top pair. Let's see if this turn brings any more action with already 50K in the middle right here.
Let's see if we pick up any live channels.
Swallow.
Oh, he's one of those
37,000.
people who salivates.
I'll put this one. Yeah.
That's definitely a
because I
little
don't
bit of
have,
something, like where he like goes like this one.
That's what everybody should say when they bet.
It's hard to just go by one situation, but basically the idea here would be he's like kind of doing a meek putting in money thing, and like it is right now we see the card, so it's easy to say that, oh, he's trying to do a reverse psychological thing, but yeah, if you pay attention and you see, oh, he had it on this occasion and then he does it again, maybe it makes sense to lay a strong hand down.
So Dario wins it here with the 6-4. Ellie gives up his pair of tens, which was no longer top pair on the turn.
That said, he just did it again, so he might just have this facial style very frequently, and then you can't use it at all, because it does really depend with live stuff on the base behavior basically that you encounter in someone.
Right.
So like if someone is super confident all the time and now they're confident in a hand, that just means nothing.
Right.
If someone is like pacifying continuously and like scratching the face, it also means nothing when they do it.
So basically what you're saying is that as far as sample size goes when you're playing live, just because something looks a certain way the first time you see it has no bearings on what might happen in the future. So you have to build up that database of information about one specific opponent before you can even decide to act on that thing you saw.
Right. Yeah. So you gotta think about the baseline behavior, basically.
Right. Shout out to Moldigiani. I hope you're Italian on YouTube chat. He says, "Are we live?" Well, we are live, talking to you right now. We are watching season 5 of High Stakes Poker, which obviously is not live, but it is a lot of fun to watch. So we're just gonna, break it down a little bit, take some questions. If you guys have anything you want to ask Igor or even myself, I mean, I couldn't even imagine what you want to ask me, but if you do have any questions, please let us know. Shout out to Steven from Vegas, Lloyd, Woifei from Germany watching. We got Bobby asking, how is the pandemic affecting the WSOP this year? Well, I can take a first crack at that. Obviously, it's been announced that it's been postponed. It's been announced, well, the dates haven't been announced for when it's going to run or if it's going to run. So we're just in a wait-and-see scenario. Today, actually, the WSOP was going to start. It's so hard to even fathom.
Oh, wow, really?
Given what's happening in the world around us. So at this point, we're just in like a wait-and-see kind of situation. But Igor, I can ask you to hypothesize on what will happen to the WSOP this year. Give me your odds on it happening in the fall. What do you think?
In the fall, I mean, you've seen these poker tables that have been adjusted with like plexiglass and whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good solution. People will just a lot of people will just choose not to do it, not to come out for when not having the same experience. Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna happen in fall. I would guess no. I would guess it's like a 80%er not to happen. At least it's not gonna happen in the same way, and it's also gonna depend on people's ability to travel. If it's, even though what's the percentage of American players at the WSOP?
Just a rough guess. I'd say 70%.
Right. If it's around that, yeah, I would have guessed like 60. If it's around that, then they can actually pull it off reasonably well as soon as American flights start, and they can still call it World Series of Poker because we also call it the World Series in baseball.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's fine, I guess. But you won't get international live tournaments. That's going to be very hard where countries have different regimes with the quarantine.
Yeah, exactly.
And people are also just, only because something opens up and you're allowed to travel doesn't mean that people actually will. And especially in this situation where online poker is doing pretty well, you have a lot of opportunities to play. There's going to be a big event that's running, like the Bellagio 10K, for example. That's always a great event. Party Poker is just going to run a similar huge 10K instead of that. So you can just stay home and play. So I think many people will choose that, and it's going to be a bit more than just a bare minimum of experience of comparable experience that's going to be required so that people come back.
Yeah, and speaking on online poker, the Super High Roller Bowl online series is going on right now on Party Poker, 2 10Ks and 1 25K every single day, and we are live streaming the final table of the 25K every day as well. So right after this stream ends, in about an hour and a half, you can tune into Brent Hanks and Jeff Platt doing commentary on the final table of the Super High Roller Bowl online series events, headlined by chip leader Victor Blom. So if you want some great action with whole cards up from the PokerGo virtual studio, which looks really sick, I have to tell you guys, that's going to be live on Facebook and on PokerGo for free. So if you are a PokerGo subscriber, throw it on your Chromecast. If you are on Facebook like you are watching us right here, just stay tuned. It's going to be live at noon Pacific time. That's going to be 3 p.m. on the East Coast and 9 p.m. Central European time. So live action, Victor Blom, should be a lot of fun. All right, we got Doyle Brunson with top set against the flush draw of Viffer. Let's listen and see where this goes.
And he does. He raises to 125,000.
Let's go.
Doyle's saying
I thought the story was
he
that
can't have quads yet, can
he
he?
was in that
I got the best hand here, 3 aces.
Such a good moment when you sit there and the guy raises you 6x.
I mean, raising
Feels so good.
raising flush draws seems to be like a thing of the 2000s. Like that was always a thing.
I mean, it's still a thing. It's just now you don't always do it. I mean, back then even you also didn't always do it. Feels good for the aces.
I hope you're not drawing.
I'm drawing.
Uh-oh.
You want to run it twice?
It's up to you. I don't care.
Yeah, we could run it twice.
Viffer would be delighted to get his money back.
All that whining, and then you flop the set ace.
Let's put an 8 on the turn just to make it fun.
Okay, still running it twice, just so the camera.
I haven't won it yet, have I?
I was like, Doyle just, it's the same thing.
Yep.
Doyle just bet pot on ace-10 deuce with aces. And he was right.
I mean,
Viffer didn't care.
Viffer didn't have the price to call, so he raised, which is obviously the second best option.
Those moaning gods are powerful.
Bear that board there, sweetie.
Oh, sweetie.
When you're winning, sure.
When you win the first one, the deal is sweetie.
13 outs.
Same thing, diamond, 8 or king.
Here we go.
Diamonds. That's no good.
You see the gamble in Dario, the way he's
Hit a
watching
queen
the board.
twice, and then
Queen diamond snake
both
full
times.
Really excited.
Big Papa takes them both.
All right,
down.
Doyle takes a huge pot. Igor, we got a few more questions here in the chat. Jan Julius Priester asking on YouTube. He says, I have one question. I see many times in online poker that people shove but leave like 1 to 5 big blinds behind. Is this some kind of strategy or just some weird behavior? I have also noticed this, by the way, watching some Twitch scoops. What is up with that? Why are people doing that?
Yeah, I think that started in sit and goes like 6-7 years ago already. That's at least sit and goes where I think people picked it up first. But the idea is basically that in a tournament where there is a bubble around, like if ICM is at play, even a little bit, then a lost chip is worth more than a gained chip, as we've heard many times. So if your options are you always go all in or you just leave a little bit, like with the times that you miss adding the 1 big blind into your jam with the best hand, having 1 big blind more when you get called when you have the best hand is not as good as losing the final big blind is bad. So whenever you have 1 big blind left, you have the chance to come back. And especially if you're at the final table and every hand someone else can bust and you have 1 big blind, you might just ladder a spot. Whereas the alternative is you jam every time and yes, you win 1 more big blind. But if you have 62 blinds or 63 blinds, it's a way smaller change than 0 blinds or 1 blind.
So it is actually being done with the thought in the back of the mind that there is still a way out of this hand. It is not just for show.
Yeah, it's absolutely for the reason that you just change instead of it only should happen on the river, that you just change your jam all in. You just change it to jam minus 1 big blind or whatever the amount. It's not that substantial, but basically just leaving yourself something behind every time.
Right.
Yeah, and that also happens a little bit with like short stack all-ins. Again, if it's a final table and there's multiple people at the table, you might actually jam your 12 blind stack only with 7 blinds, and then 2 players go all in, so you can still fold and ladder up if that's what happens. But overall, these are like tiny things that don't affect much, but it's a tiny edge that still matters.
Right. Dario Manieri all in with top 2 pair against Doyle Brunson with a pair and a flush draw. Let's listen in and see if this goes anywhere.
Either to a straight or a flush.
Put the break in the middle, yeah?
Doyle's got the best hand with a pair of 3s. And if Dario has a hand, like a set, 2 pair, or an overpair, he's not that big an underdog. He's got 25,000 invested already. I would think he has to call.
I've got the hand where you can't be dead. I can't be dead.
He tipped her. He tipped her. Dario tipped her. I don't like you. Dario's my favorite player from Roma.
$10 more for sure he's not calling.
Yeah.
Well, what I care, I know he's got me beat right now. At least I think he does. 73.
Pair and a flush draw is a very good hand.
Yeah. There we go.
3 of these.
It's funny how Doyle can be Dario's grandfather, which makes this even more funny to watch. 200K in the middle. Doyle makes the call.
All that stuff in the middle. Let's see that big fat pot.
Look at the cards and then.
Oh, what you got?
You want to showdown and decide?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we showdown and then we decide.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but that's the hand I put you on.
Holy cow.
You want to do twice?
Yeah, whatever you want, I don't care.
Whatever you want,
Twice
Dario.
is fine.
You're our favorite player from Rome.
Just like Viffer in the last hand, Doyle would be happy to break even here.
Yep. Twice or 3 times?
2 times.
2 times.
That's the end of that
There's a
one.
9.
Well, he's definitely not going to call the dealer sweetie now.
I was saying to myself, spade.
All right,
Okay, number 2.
Even 3 is good.
spade or a 3, please.
Wow. Doyle is shut out.
Just double boat for Dario here to win 200K and double his stack here on High Stakes Poker Season 5. Shout out to everyone in the chat. We appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions for Igor Kurganov, one of the best players in the world, who seemingly knows everything about anything. So, if you have any questions about what the weather's going to be where you live, he probably has some thoughts on that. A shout out to people on YouTube who are asking...
With the help of the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
You can just pull it up on your phone. Coding Mania on YouTube is asking, I'm a beginner in poker. How can I improve? Should I read books? Because playing online and watching YouTube videos on poker is not helping me improve. And I think this is something that I also personally deal with, and I'm also, not by any means an amazing player, is that I love consuming content, even strategy-wise, but when I'm then forced to apply it, it's much harder to do so. So I think what he's just asking is, what's a good way to learn to apply, strategy when you're starting from a low level?
Right. Yeah, I don't think just consuming can get you very far. Like, you're not necessarily learning, like, even it would be even better if while consuming you pause the feed. If it's high stakes poker, sorry, like this is really fun, but you shouldn't learn from this at all.
Right.
Anyway, but like from the upcoming high stakes poker, you can learn because you'll see great current players who are studying the game and such. But yeah, if you want to learn from content, I think pausing it is good and trying to make your own decision first. Like what has been shown in how education works better is if you just sit and consume and wait for the other to make a decision, what you're actually learning is also how the answers come out. So you're learning not to come to the decision yourself, you're learning to see what the teacher is doing. So then when it's a real situation for you, your mind is still waiting to get the answer from the teacher rather than like having learned to reason through the thing itself. So this is why like nowadays more and more like applied practice is coming into theory as well.
Right.
So you should, pause it, make your own mind up, and also play, and also just play fewer tables and think through the decisions and try to come up with your own reasoning. And then check that reasoning afterwards, adjust your reasoning, and do the same thing again.
Right. So basically, if you watch training videos online and you're trying to learn poker, pause it before you get the answer, and then try to give your own answer, and then compare that towards what your teacher is telling you, or even if
and not only just give it, but like think through the situation and try to understand why you gave that answer. Like give an answer, give a reasoned answer, basically. And then the coach will explain his reasoning or their reasoning and their answer, and then you can adjust afterwards.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense.
That's if you just want to go with YouTube videos, just like pausing will probably go a good way as well already.
Right. For me, it's really funny as well because having done so many interviews and podcasts and talking to top players all the time, I usually know what the question is. I just never really know what the answer is. So when you give me a breakdown of a hand, I can ask a good follow-up question because I can keep up with your thinking. But if you would ask me the same question, I would not be able to produce the answer, which is obviously the difference between someone who just plays poker and someone who is one of the greatest. So that is a really funny difference to note as you are doing that mental gymnastics in your own head while you are, on the fly talking about poker hands. Cranking up the audio here just a little bit to make sure that we are on the same level. We are still watching High Stakes Poker Season 5. Lots of straddling going on. Let's see if this hand goes anywhere. We're multi-way with 3 people in the hand. Don't see much here on the flop. Let's check out the chat to see if there's anything more out there. Niv is saying, this was a time in poker that we may never see again. However, Igor, I know from talking to you in the past that GTO play doesn't mean boring play. It also means, lots of aggression. So explain to the audience how watching top-level players can also be very, very entertaining just because of how they now approach the game.
I mean, you just have to go and watch like the super high roller bowl in Sochi, for example, kind of the last big live event before all of this went down. And if you watch Tim Adams or Sam Greenwood play, you'll just immediately see that poker hasn't gotten tighter or like more careful. It's quite the opposite. I think you have probably on average more blinds bet on turns and on rivers nowadays than you ever used to. The only thing that has changed is that people don't play these ridiculous hands pre-flop, which allows them then to also press harder post-flop. And it's both things can be fun. Depends on which part you enjoy. I think it's also fun to sit around on a table and like try to make very bad hands work. But I think it's also entertaining to see someone just like put on a ton of pressure, as in that example, Tim Adams and Sam Greenwood do.
Yeah. Tom Dwan, by the way, trying to take this pot away from Meltzer. Nobody has anything here. Meltzer tried to take it here, but let's see.
Sort of get more when you said spread that pot out. You got it.
King high for Meltzer.
Nice.
I got a king.
Nice, son.
And that stuff you also still see, like Tim Adams or Sam Greenwood again. Like they'll also try, like Tom tried here, to just go outside of GTO and just like try to get the guy off a hand if they believe that it might work.
Right. Where do you rank your own poker game right now as it pertains to what you want to play again when the pandemic is over? Do you feel as though you're still on top of it?
I've definitely slacked over the last half year, a few months. I haven't been like others with the pandemic have been, I imagine, just sitting and studying a lot and playing a lot. And I was focused on a variety of things and haven't been studying much and haven't played that much either. So right now I wouldn't rank myself among the top, among the top 20 probably at today. That said, I think I can get back there pretty quickly if I decide to. Like poker always was kind of, I don't know, just when you start learning, it also becomes extra fun again, at least to me. And it usually, like, I had a knack for it.
Right. Yay on or yeah on YouTube is saying, are you guys going to stop talking so we can listen to the players? Well, no. The whole point of this show is that we have a fun conversation, we take your questions, and we watch High Stakes Poker at the same time. If you just want to watch High Stakes Poker and not listen to us talk, which I can fully understand, you can go to PokerGo right now and watch all 7 seasons of High Stakes Poker right there at your own leisure.
You can even turn on the other stream of high stakes poker next to it, and then adjust the volumes as you wish to hear someone talk.
Wow, that's next level stuff.
If you really want to like sometimes still listen to us and sometimes to high stakes poker.
Yeah, so all 7 seasons of High Stakes Poker are available on PokerGo. Season 8 of High Stakes Poker is coming. We are working on it. That's why all of High Stakes Poker is now on PokerGo, because we are creating a new season, of course. Shout out to Corona. We can't really do anything right now, but when that's all over, we are going to bring you new seasons of High Stakes Poker, which obviously is going to be amazing. Igor, which one of the modern players would you like seeing the most on High Stakes Poker? And let's, just for sake of this hypothetical situation, not name any of the players that played on High Stakes Poker in the past.
Of the modern players, I mean, I think the guy who is still the most fun is Jungle Man. I mean, obviously a controversial point to bring up right now. We'll see how all of that plays out. But I think watching him play is pretty fun.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that guys like, even like a Steven Chitwick, who's more of a tournament player, if given the chance, he'll probably splash around. How about yourself? Are you still playing cash, high stakes? Is that something you'd be comfortable with being on High Stakes Poker?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've played all sorts of stakes throughout the years, and I'd come out for it probably. But I'm not so sure. Like, Stevie is obviously a great player, but I think High Stakes Poker should also involve someone who is entertaining at the table. It's like, yeah, we're not just building. I imagine like Maury and you guys are not just building it by like the merit of the skill of the player, but rather by what's going to be the most entertaining product in the end. And it might include 1 or 2 players who are just like sitting there like robots, but overall, not to talk Stevie down at all. Great guy, great player. But I think someone like Jungle Man, it's just why am I bringing him up as an example today out of all this? Anyway, someone like him, or who else comes to mind?
What about Bryn Kenny?
Yeah, Bryn plays a lot, and he's definitely entertaining at the table as well.
By the way,
like,
we have a big.
You want a combination of it.
We have a big hand developing. We had kings for Viffer. Dwan sure is not folding against Viffer's 3 bets, and then Locke comes in here with the 5s. Let's see how this develops.
7s and a 3.
Where's Locke coming from? What was pre-flop?
That was a terrible.
I think Locke made it 3K, Viffer 3 bet, and Dwan called the 3 bet, and then Locke called the 3 bet as well.
Yeah.
He's got the nut flush draw. We know there's going to be some serious action on this hand.
Well, Viffer's bet 50 grand.
You don't have a great feeling here with 9s.
Dwan kicks it up another 100.
Didn't take long. And there's that meerkat look and the rabbit ears again.
Quad 7's any good, kid? I mean, I'm not gonna like knit around. I'm all in.
All in?
Wow.
Yeah. That's such a way to go all in. Like clearly being uncomfortable. But at the same time, like, what are you scared of? Like the guy has 7-8 suited or ace-7, like 7-8 suited once in his life here.
Yeah.
And because he doesn't always raise it, why would he?
It's funny how Viffer looks more disappointed than Dwan to get it in here before the cards are turned over, which is really funny.
Viffer 60%.
Just a casual 400K pod, by the way. Nope, no big deal.
Queen on the turn.
The threat, I forgot to count this one out.
Ace or a heart for Dwan here.
No, yeah, now is. But it's draw.
Well, what do you know?
That's what you forget.
I'm shocked. I am really just shocked that Dwan's the only person that made his flush. Now Viffer's got to hope to split the pot.
Oh, baby.
There's a 7.
An ace.
And he will split it unless an ace.
Actually, a 7.
Also the 7.
Right, or a 7.
7 balls.
9%.
Dwan needs an ace or a 7.
Oh!
Dario loves his numbers.
Oh, baby!
Dario always calling out what is about to happen.
Before, like, yelled out 13 outs.
Justin, thanks for letting me know that I botched that pre-flop action. Please let me know what I missed. I was paying attention to Igor and to the hand at the same time. But anyway, split pot there. Ace Jack of Hearts gets it in there against the kings of Viffer. There seems to be so much money in the middle every single time during these big hands. And once again, we see a flush draw raise. And I think it also goes to show how, like, what the tendencies of these guys were battling each other on a regular basis in these big live games. this, of course, might be higher stakes than they would normally play, but at the same time, it's a similar lineup. So I think that plays a lot into how this is being played with a lot of aggressive players that face off against each other all the time.
The blinds are 400, 800 with a 200 ante it just showed, and it's 8 people at the table, so it's 1600 in antes. So it's basically like you can up it by 400 and 200 on each side. And it's like a 600, 1200 game. That's why the people are still raising to 3000.
Right.
Like it's a 600, 1200 ante game, or a, like 816, even more.
Justin,
no ante game.
Justin let us know it was limp from Lock and Viffer. Then Dwan raised, Lock called, and Viffer back 3-bet, and they both called.
All right.
that is some of my favorite creative play. Mike Baxter here with the Ace King of Hearts. Tom Dwan makes it 11,700 with Queen 9 of Hearts. Let's see what Baxter does here with his Ace King.
All right. 60, 70, 80, 90, 110, 20, 30.
He's up 30.
140, 145, 150. I'm stuck 50,000. I'm going broke.
And Mike's going to raise to 31,700.
I do miss the classic. I raise and then putting in the call first, and then going with like some 25K on top.
That's a $20,000 raise. It's really not enough to knock anybody with a reasonable hand out.
Dan Smith brings it back sometimes.
Oh, no, you're right.
And Dwan calls.
Dwan is also never, ever folding. That's the beauty of this game.
I'd be exactly even if I just called.
Dwan's got to hope hearts don't come out there.
So just for the sake of this hand, Igor, sizing and the decision making on both sides, is that sort of the way this hand would play out? You know, of course, Dwan trying to be aggressive and then calling the 4-bet.
I mean, I don't know how deep they are here. Both actions by Dwan are pretty loose. The pre-flop, he's on the button or on the small blind? I think he's on the button.
Yeah, he is on the button.
No, he's in the...
No.
Did he snap check back or did he? We'll see by the turn action who they show first. Yeah, I think he's in the small blind.
Yeah, you're right.
And, I mean, under the gun raising to 3.5 blinds. And then you don't really play Queen 9 suited that often against such a large raise, but you can sometimes. Nowadays, that is. And that's against a player of equal strength to you. So given that you expect that Billy Baxter is a weaker player, then you would you can play Queen 9 suited and you'll play it sometimes as a raise, sometimes as a flat, yeah. And then flatting the 4-bet. I mean, again, if you're a stronger player, why not? You can get away with that.
Dwan betting 34K here on the river. What is that bet?
Sizing is pretty reasonable, though, by the way. I imagine. I mean, he could make it even larger, given that they're probably like 250 blinds deep or something.
What does this sizing say to you on the river by Dwan leading into Baxter here?
In not necessarily that much. He could do it like with a variety of hands, but he doesn't have that many bluffs. I guess he has like. What does he even have? Ace. I mean, he will have bluffs because he's Tom, but like he'll have King Queens, he'll have Ace 4 suited, Ace 10 suited, etc. He can bluff all of those.
So knowing Baxter is a tight player, and I've watched all this stuff, he's a pretty tight player. Is Dwan betting his 9 there because he knows that if Baxter checks back twice after 4-betting, Ace King is basically his entire range there because all his pocket pairs he would bet?
I mean, he's betting it because at that point it's just very, very likely the best hand. Yeah.
Right.
So like basically he's only losing to overpairs and or 2 pairs, and those are just not checked back twice. And it doesn't have to be that he expects Ace King to call. Baxter could have been bluffing. I don't know if he was super tight and just never has Ace 8 suited as a 4-bet, for example, or Ace 5, which also would have been a pair he can call with. Yeah, but I mean, what are you going to do if you have the best hand on the river? Nowadays, I guess the bet sizing is a bit more varied. Like he may have bet like 3rd or quarter pot, but it's all pretty reasonable.
All right. Shout out to
Situation,
everyone
at least.
watching right now, by the way, on Facebook and YouTube. This is Run It Back, where Igor Kurganov and myself watch high-stakes poker. We break it down. We take questions from the chat. We interact with you guys. And if you want to watch all these seasons on PokerGo right now, you can do so. All 7 seasons are available right there. But please let us know in the chat what you want to know, whether it's about, high-stakes poker or about Igor or about your own play or, whatever else is going on in regards to your life as a poker player. Do hit us up, and don't forget to like this video, whether you're watching it on YouTube or Facebook. It helps us a lot getting found. And this show runs twice a week. So this is 10 a.m. Pacific on Tuesday and at 5 p.m. Pacific on Thursday. So Thursday, it's wine hour. I'm making myself a cocktail. Today, in the morning, it's coffee hour. All right, let's look at the chat, see if there are any more questions. And Igor, feel free to interrupt me if the hand gets interesting and you see something great out there. Let's see what is happening. This is another question from Colton that I really like. Igor, how do you go about dealing with maniacs at the table? And maniacs being then, from what I'm assuming, very, very aggressive players.
You get to play more hands against them, fortunately, because if they have a looser range, then you can also more profitably play even looser hands. And yeah, for the most part, you're just happy about it and sit there and try to play the best you can against them, just probably not folding too much by the river and value betting them lighter. I mean, if they play more hands, that's where you end up.
Exactly. We got 2 pair against 2 pair, so likely ending up in a chop here. But Eliel Ezra is running some numbers in his head as he is the one holding a flush draw here. If he would know he was up against ace-8 twice.
Oh, he'd be so happy to call in.
He'd be so happy to get it all in. Let's see what he does.
30
Such a clean flush draw
Reed
then.
is telling him, hey, Ellie, you got to go for this, boy. He looks
nice.
like he's doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Tom, you call with my hand.
If I've ever seen forward motion.
Yeah.
Be sure I got what I thought I had.
But he was looking down, actually, and obviously he was doing it for fun and
Yeah.
not like out of any other reason.
Well, he's going to want his cards back at this point, seeing those hands.
Doyle again with a slow call.
Queen 10 of hearts?
No, I'll call this in a second.
Ace X of hearts?
Queen high play. Ace is 8.
I can't read.
That also used to be way more of a thing. Nowadays, it kind of irritates me when, like, you raise, the guy 3-bets you, and then you jam over the 3-bet, and the guy's like, oh, this much, huh? Okay. Looks back at his hand. Yeah, I call and has aces. Like, what? Like, just why?
Yeah, just
like, in the meantime, like because yeah, it's just kind of it's not really a failure to empathize with the other position. I think it's just people are enjoying the moment probably that they have there. Doesn't come out of a bad place, except if it's a friend of yours and he slow rolls you, then it definitely does. But otherwise, yeah, but it's definitely very irritating because you, on the other hand, sit there and like your hopes keep rising to, oh man, he might fold if you're bluffing, or if you have queens, kings, like ahead here.
Right. Shout out, by the way, to Jeremy and Kamal and Stan on Facebook. Mode is there as well with us. I saw Woy Fei G says, Igor, Teeny says hello, remember him. I mean, I'm not sure if Igor remembers every single person he's ever played with, but thanks for the shout out. And we do say hello to Teeny. We love that you guys are joining us.
Do you remember Teeny? Yeah. If it's Konstantin Büchel, then for sure, but I'm not sure if it's him.
Oh, Bong Bob?
Yeah, Bong Bob, exactly.
Bong Bob, I mean, this is way back in 2006 when I still had aspirations. Bong Bob and I would clash all the time in the sit and goes. Those were the good old days. Man, I'm getting...
Yeah, he became a pretty strong PLO player later.
Oh, he still plays?
Yeah, the later refers to way back.
Right.
So I have no idea, actually. I don't know.
We got another question here from Anthony on YouTube. Does players having very small percentages of themselves and swapping a lot with friends make the high rollers less attractive for recreational players?
I mean, I have talked a bit about it with businessmen I'm friendly with. So in some cases, yes. In most cases, no, I'd say. It becomes a problem, though, when people have similar sized pieces, like anywhere close to even similar sized pieces of someone else as they do of themselves. I think they're I mean, we're in a like unpoliced environment around these things, but like, so it's only honor code or something that applies. But it's just like, even if you were to try to make it not influence you, it's just really hard to imagine that it has zero influence on you. If you're at a final table with someone and one guy has 10% of themselves and 5% of someone else, it's just, you really don't want the other guy to bust. So for that reason, for example, when I started playing high rollers, I also had a fairly small pieces of myself, especially if playing like a 250K or a million buy-in.
And
so
when you're
then I would swap, but we always had like a 5-to-1 ratio or something as a minimum, and like very rarely only it would be like 4-to-1.
So when you say small piece of yourself, what do you mean with that? What's the numbers?
Like in what was the smallest I may have gone? Like in the one drop, I probably had like 11% or something, which is still huge. It's $110,000, but it's small relative to the buy-in. But and that's also the thing. Like it matters enormously to me. It's still the biggest buy-in that I play. So usually by dollar amount, I tend to, and that also makes sense, I think. Like and many people do that actually in the high stakes scene. That if it's a bigger buy-in, they take the same or larger piece of themselves. Just like feels more right, feels better. Yeah. So I think most people are like acting reasonably around it, and yeah, when someone ends up having these like similar sized pieces, I don't know how they do it then. Like if they think that they are not acting differently. Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen much.
So let's watch this hand, and I have a follow-up question on that based on having pieces of yourself. Dario Manieri, 8-7 offsuit, can't muck that. Let's see where this hand goes.
He's going to raise to 17,000.
Can't call that. It's too bad. So you got to raise it.
17 total call. Re-raise it.
60,800.
He just re-raised to 60,800.
Nice.
Viffer continues to read everybody.
I mean, the size is a bit unnecessary, but otherwise great.
So how much would you make it?
I don't know how deep they are, but I doubt that they're like 350K deep or something. Dario doesn't seem to have that much.
Dario has like 200K because he just doubled through Doyle, so he has like 210 maybe.
Right. Yeah, you can make it smaller than like 50 is fine, but it's not that material. You can make it 45, 47. Like your range is like, yeah, it looks pretty strong anyway. It's Dario.
Aces.
Oh, you got the ace of hearts.
Ace king, ace king.
Back to our conversation about the action selling. What's more exciting for you? You said you had 11% in the one drop, $1 million buy-in. Or like if we just do it by equal dollar amounts, having 10% in $1 million tournament or having 100% of yourself in a 100K event. Like what's more exciting?
I never had 100% in 100K. Actually, no, that's not true. I once had even more than 100% because I bought myself when I had a short stack with Timex at the time for more. So, and then I ran it up as well, and that was extremely exciting. So it's hard to say. I think it's more. I would still way rather play 10% of 1 million buy-in, even at like selling at no markup. It's just, I don't know, like whenever you play for more money, it like every single decision you make matters more. And that's basically, you have to be more focused, and you are more focused because it truly matters more. And that just makes it just so much better. I just love it. And it's I think not about total money, but rather like money relative to your personal net worth or bankroll. So I'd be fine with, if I stake someone, as long as they have between like 0.5% and 1%, whatever that means to their own bankroll, but like 1% of their bankroll in it invested, I don't mind if it's only a small portion of the thing itself.
Right. So as long as you have...
And that said, it also should never be a free roll. Like I think free rolls are also not right. Like it again, like messes the incentives up. And I just personally believe in like aligning incentives as a primary thing, and then acting like ethically and like business-wise well just makes becomes way easier. Like you just need to worry about way fewer things if you align the incentives initially.
So skin in the game relative to your own
Right.
bankroll, that is what makes it for like an honest situation. So if you're
it's I think, I mean, it just increases the chance that everyone will act honestly in it.
Right. All right. We have an interesting hand
yeah.
here where Tom Dwan called the $800 big blind with his aces, hoping for some action. We're going to a flop 4 ways. So let's see how this hand gets played out, because obviously it's fun when Dwan has no cards, but when he has cards, let's see how that goes. Oh, my audio just froze on VLC, so we got no sound on this, but at least we have the aces of Tom Dwan making a set, which is always very helpful.
Wow, how does every single player have something?
Right.
It's not often that you, like, it's so about impossible on ace 7-3 having aces and 4 opponents that all have some equity.
So walk us through this hand, Igor. What are you seeing?
What happened pre-flop? We have a small pot pre, so Dwan raised and everyone called.
It was
even then?
Dwan limped. It was 4-way to the flop.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, one of these. I haven't played many limped spots or studied many limped 300 blind deep post-flop spots, but I think I'm not sure if I'm Billy. I'm raising there with king high flush. Like, you limp behind, yeah, you can sometimes raise, but if someone sits on a small flush behind you, you might get them in. You're probably playing to get a very large pot, not specifically from Dwan, but just, then again, in this game, no one folds a flush draw, I guess. So it doesn't matter. Just raise it up with your king high flush draw fairly frequently as well.
Yeah, and then Baxter calls, by the way, Mike Baxter, by the way, not
Dwan nicely like putting in a 3-bet on the flop because he just gets no credit for any action he does, so he should when he has a strong hand. That's a bit of a mistake that I see some people do sometimes. It's like they have a very loose image and then they think they want to trap with the nuts. Like, don't. That's the reason you build up this loose image. Like, this is your moment. Use it. And Dwan does. I don't know why the turn went check.
Yeah, Dwan 3-bet the flop.
I mean, he can totally check sometimes. He was check raising again, and given that you don't expect your opponent to have an ace, there's many hands that have gotten that are pretty strong. So he was just hoping that Billy has like a set frequently or a 2-pair or just a bluff. Well, like a flush draw that he'll bet is the bluff then, and therefore he was probably check raising again.
Baxter.
Yes, and here he gets even paid off just from the king because Dwan doesn't get much credit, even when the run out kind of hits a lot of possible bluffs of Dwan's. It's just like, if you don't get credit, you should value bet.
Right. All right, let's look at the chat here for a second. I'm going to have to probably restart VLC here for a second because my audio is completely gone, which is kind of a shame. If you guys have any questions in the chat, please do let us know, YouTube or Facebook, and don't forget to like this video. It really helps us a lot. Jan Julius Priester has another question, so that's perfect timing here as I get this stream reset. He says, I have lots of spots in tournaments saved and did not know what was the plus EV way. Is there any way to know how I should have played it? So basically, he wants to know, in hindsight, is there a correct answer to these decisions? And I'm just going to assume that that goes into running it through machines and calculators to find out, what the right play would have been.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely one way, and that's the way to find out the theoretically optimal solution if everyone plays perfect poker. But that doesn't mean that it's the best way to play the hand.
Right.
So you probably, while playing the tournament, have built up some history and understanding about your opponents. And that should definitely include, like your decision. Kind of lost here because of the video freezing. But yeah, that should influence your decision as well. And if you are personally working with a solver and not just like having someone look it up, then you can also adjust for tendencies of other players, and you should. But that said, the quickest way is probably asking someone that you trust to know these answers, but I'm not sure you have someone. So therefore, yeah, just like figure out what was difficult for you in that decision, and try to find similar situations, maybe in coaching videos or something where people talk about similar situations and try to reason from there.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's a good way to do that. And while you were talking, Look at the magic of my computer skills. I managed to restart this. I'm going to share that screen again with you, Igor, to make sure that you know what we're talking about.
One more thing on the action buying and such.
Yeah.
I think if you are personally at a final table where you're not sure if people have swaps and such, just ask. Like that, people will feel a bit. I think people should disclose their swaps anyway, especially when they're playing at a final table.
Mm-hmm.
And I have already before asked people as well, like, hey, here, do you guys have a swap? Tell me. Like, it's just like, I want to know. And I think obviously you can't make them tell you, and they can stand up for their right not to say anything, which they obviously have. But from another perspective, I personally, I mean, many opinions to be had here, but like, I don't think it's clean not to tell.
Right. So has that led to any awkward situations for yourself? Have you ever, encountered a three-handed situation where you were playing against two people that had, pieces of themselves, or maybe just at the final table?
I had one situation in Monaco where I was playing. It was a satellite, I think. Yeah, it was a satellite to the tournament like many years ago, and was a French player, me, a French girl, and one other player as well. We were on the direct bubble, and the French player was chip leader the whole time. And he was folding the small blind to the short stacked, cute French girl multiple times. So at some point I just said, guys, like, like you can try to like, just have it. I mean, game is a fun word here, but like, just like try to gain her favor with like something else than screwing all us over, and called the tournament director over as well, because he was claiming that he's like playing reasonably, but obviously he just had to jam. So there's like multitude of reasons, I guess, why people can be colluding in such ways. In this case, he just wanted to, be nice to the girl. But
did you win the seat?
That was the only awkward spot. And then the tournament director came over as well and like believed me that there was reason to assume that he was colluding. And then they said that if he doesn't like play reasonably, like he will have to turn the cards over. So then he started jamming. All of a sudden, he was finding decent hands that were good enough to jam against the 10 big blind stack while there are short stacks on the direct bubble. Yeah, and otherwise, usually like twice I've said the thing and people just disclose their swaps, and it's fine.
Did you win the seat though?
Yeah, I cashed in the end.
All right, we got another big pot here.
I don't even think that she busted. I think the other person busted then.
Wow, so it worked out for her. A lot of money in the middle here.
Well, maybe it worked out for him even.
Ellie Lesra, 2-pair against Phil Locke with the open and the straight draw.
In similar situations, Phil would be very happy to split this pot.
Like 6 ain't gonna get it.
6 of spades took away 2 of Phil Locke's outs. King or an 8 can't be a spade now.
Really?
Always good to win the first one.
Chips.
I'll take the 100 back at least. No, put the 9 or 7. Get it over with now. Ooh, wow.
Chips.
Another spade. Another elimination of the king or the 8 of spades.
Another call for chips.
All right, well done. So you have me ample covered.
Lock is busted.
Reaching for more.
Yep.
Always that bad feeling when you have to reach for more chips or cash. It always hurts. Igor, what's the highest stakes live cash that you've ever played, and do you have a memory of like the biggest pot you've ever been in?
Yeah. The highest game I've ever played was 10K, 20K Euro blinds.
Sorry, say that again.
10K, 20K Euro blinds, but we weren't very deep in the game. And it didn't last very long. It was a 3-handed game. And outside of that, the game that, like I played the game with with Richard Young and Paul Pua multiple times, like in the early years, not as early as the people that traveled to Macau to play it did, but afterwards when they started playing around the circuit, played with them in Monaco, Australia and such. And the other game usually was 2K, 4K in US. Well, or 1K, 2K, just like usually like anteed later as well. And outside of it, yeah, like it's a few games in between as well. I usually played like 3 high stakes games over like a few days per year, probably something like that.
So 10K, 20K, you said the stacks weren't too deep, but how deep were the stacks? Because 10 big blinds is already a lot of money.
I mean, yeah, we had €1 million swings up and down, multiple as well. But yeah, we started with 5-10 and then it went up.
Is that the point where...
It was a private game, obviously.
Right, but is that the point where your adrenaline is spiking sky high, or are you still able, even though the stakes are ridiculous, to be able to be totally your own self and cool and calm and collected?
I mean, I don't know if I'm my own self, but I'm definitely more excited. But it doesn't manifest itself in like heavy nervousness or something. Also because like these stakes, like, or similar stakes at least, like I've played before. So like the very first time you play very high stakes, it's always exciting, or high stakes relative to you.
Right.
So yeah, as I said before, like in the moment you're just really focused and like really giving it your all, kind of.
And then what's the feeling like when you play your first 7-figure pot? I can only imagine that walking home at night, win or lose, that's gonna sort of be etched in your memory.
What was that like? I think the first 7-figure pot I might have played in Australia, we had a game which was like throughout late in the night. Then it was Paul, Gus Hansen, and me playing 3-handed for a while, and there we just had multiple very large pots. And I had run it up like from starting with like a couple million Hong Kong, and then I was up about like $1 million US, and I went down to live. We just started dating, and like, okay, I'll stay in the game. I'll see you later. It's going pretty well. I can't leave really. And she was like, okay, I guess. Like she goes to sleep, and then I kept playing and lost like most of it back, but still ended as a small winner. But like played until, I don't know, like 10 a.m. or something, and yeah, just wished that I didn't just say goodnight, but also stayed with her.
Right.
Because I also had a stupid amount of my own net worth at the time in that game invested.
So
it was probably like the highest personally, definitely the highest stakes that I've ever played. When I had run it up, it was, I don't know, like half of my net worth or something at the table.
Wow. Is it a case though in high stakes poker, whether it's tournaments or cash games, that someone like yourself and other good players are playing and playing and playing and learning and getting better for those opportunities then to arise and take a big shot, because you know that can then be a life-changing moment, and you're ready for the moment, so then you want to put a lot more on the line?
Yeah, definitely. Like I mean, for one, you want to play higher because it's more exciting. It's not necessarily life-changing, I think. Like if you actually look at your life, usually pretty much nothing changes. You still see people, you hang out. Maybe you buy slightly more expensive wine and you go to a slightly fancier restaurant if there is still like a way to go. But you do the same things. So it's mostly just, I think, the competitive aspect, like in part with yourself, but also just like within the global poker rankings is what really drives you to play higher and higher, and like to really, yeah, to be able to compete in those games. And yeah, on the way there, you have to take shots. I mean, even like there's just no alternative. If you play some stakes where you now have gotten to have, say, in a cash game, like 100 start stacks worth of money, bankroll, and then you have 200 and 300. Whenever you double the stakes, that also halves. So it's relative to what you were doing before, always a shot anyway. But I think it's also, I don't know, I guess some people do it and it feels good to them, but like to me, it wouldn't have been the same to go through the years in poker and not like continuously try shots to, yeah, I don't know, to just like generate more excitement, I guess. Just, I mean, the alternative is gambling in the casino, I guess, but like getting to live out your own degenerate self in a shot is the best way you can do it, I think.
Right. But still, shot taking is the most fun anyway. And whether you want to call it gambling or shot taking, it's the best feeling in the world. I think anyone in the chat has a story or memory of their own personal shot taking. If you want to share that with us, do let us know in the chat, because I certainly have plenty of those stories. $3,000 to my name. I've told this before. There was a 20-40 mix game going on, and I had $1,000 on the table. I just wanted to go for it. Those are some of my favorite memories. I played for like 9 hours.
How did that go for you?
I played for like 9 hours, and I like won or lost like one big bet. But it was mostly limit game, so it's a little bit.
But still, you had the swings, right? Like it must have still been hell of exciting.
Yeah, when you sit down with $1,000 and it's a 30-year net worth, and you look down at $360, you're like, oh my god, I'm not reloading. Like if I bust, I'm out of here. It's really funny.
It sucks a bit. Like I enjoy also shot taking stories of others. But it definitely sends a bit the wrong message, as if like you should go out and just do that over and over. Truth is, you definitely should do it every now and then. If you didn't have the experience of playing with like 10-20% of your net worth at the table, it's just, I don't know. It's just a really fun experience to have.
Yeah. All right, we got.
And I know other people have had more.
Yeah. Well, are you a notorious shot taker? Are you a risk taker in that sense?
Yeah, like more so in the past, less so nowadays. But I definitely never played with I had pretty bad bankroll management in my early years, going broke after I made money first twice. But yeah, then I improved, had to at some point. Also, Liv is came from the other direction at it, so that helped like in 2014 when her like very tight bankroll management then helped me.
Right. No, I think it's good to have a bit of balance. Shout out to the chat, by the way. Colton, Tino, Julian, Thomas. No skills, just gills. I like that nickname. That's pretty good, actually. Lots of players there in the chat going back and forth on some strategy. It's going to be tough to break down a single specific hand that you guys are talking about, because obviously we want to relate this to as many people as possible. But do keep the questions coming. We got quite a few more hands of high stakes poker going on here. 3 people here with a king. Let's see how this hand plays out.
Ellie raised to 17,100.
Basically clicks it against Meltzer, which I don't know. Meltzer is, I think, pretty loose. People used to like to raise and maybe check back.
Dario is reading Ellie correctly.
Okay, now both of them are like doing the classic race to see where you stand. I don't know if Dario, I don't think Dario expects Ellie to fold a better king. Wow, just doesn't matter to anyone. In this case, Ellie should just throw it away with Meltzer calling. Meltzer's call is obviously very strong.
This is kind of funny, actually. Ellie making a face and showing Doyle one card, and that card can only be a king. So for Dario, that's a lot of information. I'm not sure if Alan notices it, but that really has a huge impact on how this hand could play out going forward.
Yeah, I mean, as Dario, you're just now, you'd think you're up, you're more likely up against a set than you were before.
How much you got behind?
50.
I mean, if he, how does he want to? Yeah, he checks. Okay, that makes sense. If he did anything else, like it's not a good hand to bluff with.
Would have been quads for Baxter.
I check.
I check.
Ace king.
I got a king queen.
I would have made quad 10s.
King queen for Meltzer takes the hand down. Dario made his 50K on the flop, and it goes check check on turn and river. It's always fun when people have similar hands to see their approach and to see how they play it. There's a hand on season 7 where Vanessa Selps 4-bet shoves ace queen all in, and Antonio folds ace queen. That's one of those. That's one of those. Whoever's first wins, which is always a lot of fun to watch. Sean on Facebook is saying, I'm a 3-6 no limit. I guess player, and decided to take a shot at a 100-200 table. Tripled up, and it was definitely a rush. I mean, that takes some balls. that takes some real balls, man. Back in the day, Igor, as far as online poker goes, before you burst onto the live scene, how did you make your way up the stakes? Were you like a massive volume grinder? Were you cash tournaments? Like, what was your sort of path to the top?
Yeah, it was. I was still studying and started making a little bit of money on the side, which was huge at the time, like for a student living in a $250 apartment, basically. So I was making like $1,000 or so with these 180-man sit and goes that ran in the past, the $11 ones and such. And that remained somehow by some miracle, actually, like pretty consistent for 6 months, winning $1,000 to $1,500, which is not even likely. And then I just extrapolated what would happen if I tried out playing more and like really put more time into it, and grinded those for the next, well, first 3 months to see if it works, and like made some money there, and then grinded them for 2 years, and was just like playing online poker 2 years straight, eating like 2 frozen pizzas a day on average from my little oven that I had in the student dorm, and not doing very much outside of it. I think I probably like went out once every 2 weeks and like cooked with friends like once a weekend or something. But outside of that, I was really just playing, studying a bit. At the time, like definitely mostly playing, very little studying.
We got aces here for Dario Manieri, which is funny because he's been going absolutely bonkers with his raising against the 10-8 of Viffer. This looks like a lot of pain, so let's see.
That's 11,000.
Let's see if Viffer slow plays his 3 10s or goes for it.
Dario knows his numbers.
30,000.
Exactly 50%.
Another good bet by Viffer. Dario probably feels that Viffer has a pair.
And Gabe Kaplan, of course, is the decider of what a good bet or a bad bet is. That also changed, fortunately. Like, I love Gabe as a commentator,
10s and 8s,
but
10s and 7s,
just like
10s and 9s.
Knowing better what people at the table should be doing is slightly insane.
I started with about 220.
I raise.
I raise and then the smile. What's that face? I think he just does it, by the way. Like that probably means little.
After the 30, Dario's only going to have about 90,000 left.
Oh, man. I mean, if Viffer
He's all in
jams...
for $111,700.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, they do.
You want to run twice?
Oh,
Go ahead.
oh,
Dario
damn.
got the bad
How
news.
did that happen?
Decided to run it
Really
twice
didn't
anyway.
expect that.
Put him up, let's see what we're sweating.
He's actually in worse shape than he thinks because Alan Meltzer had an ace. And those percentages...
I mean, Viffer did play his flush draws aggressively, but I think if he had a flush draw, he just jams. He's done it before against Doyle with the Jack-9 on Ace-10 deuce. So like that's, or he raises so big that it's obviously an all-in. Here in this case, like this tiny raise is like just less often going to be a flush draw after you've seen him do something else with a flush draw.
It's so much fun to watch Dario play, but you can only feel bad for him in these cases where he's always in there with 7-6 and 7-8 and all these offsuit hands, and then he gets aces and he runs into this. Like this should be his
that's really annoying.
This should be his
It's
shining
frustrating.
moment to like get paid off.
Yeah.
I just turned down my volume because my neighbors were throwing bottles of wine against the wall, from what it sounded like. There he goes.
Dario took it very well.
We're playing with you.
Enjoyed it.
He probably went to the pawn shop.
It's nice when a guy comes to play. Like he definitely did.
Right, and he showed up with what he wanted to lose, and then he left. I mean, it's kind of a...
Oh, nice. We get a 10-year-old, actually only 8-year-old look into... Is this the Golden Nugget?
This
probably,
this is the Golden Nugget. Yeah, nice room actually.
I gotta say, better than I expected for the Golden Nugget 8 years ago. For 6.
I mean, this was their renovated side of the hotel probably.
I imagine so, and also maybe not. Even though it wasn't that large, so it might have even been the like superior room.
Colton is asking a question that it's going to take us 45 minutes to answer. So sorry, Colton, I'm going to skip that one for this time. It's about psychedelics and human consciousness. So I can only imagine that is takes more than just a few minutes to.
I like both. I'm pro both.
That's probably all we should do.
In short.
And
yeah, if you want to explore the one with the other in either direction, that helps.
Right. Niv Cuz is asking, was there a player Igor met back in the day that made you starstruck? So basically, were you a poker fan before becoming one of those players yourself?
Yeah, huge poker fan for sure. I think like properly starstruck. Like I was like that. Is my internet still there? It's kind of
Yeah, you were buzzing in and out, but you're still here.
Okay, let's see if it works now.
Yeah.
I got lucky in the way how I was getting lucky, even that the first big win that I had, I won in the 25K Monaco 2012 against Daniel Negreanu, who is like one of the people you would be a little bit starstruck to play against, and I beat him. So that kind of helped me in my, these guys are actually just guys,
right?
Approach to it. That said, in the year before when I played in like a WSOP tournament next to Ivy, that was just like definitely like I was sitting back and just, oh man, do I say something? That's still Ivy. Like, what do I say? Oh no, he's pretty cool over there. Shit. Let's see if I play a hand. Oh, don't want to get too involved. I'll just give it up.
That's awesome. I mean, I have that with Ivy when he's walking down the hallway. Like not even having to face him check raising me. Just seeing him in person is always a bit of a weird moment.
He definitely has this air about him. That's pretty magic.
Right. Let's do one more round here through the questions. MT is asking, how is Rec Charity doing? How is Rec Charity coming along? Are you guys still involved, and what's the latest there?
Yeah, definitely involved. The last larger involvement was we advised Triton on their on some of the donations that they did as part of the Triton $1 million tournament. So they donated a total of about 2.7 million to a variety of causes, and 650,000 of those went to organizations that we advised them on, and that was great. Like really well done by Paul to just like put together this tournament, and Richard, and Rob Young helped us there as well with like just, well, he was meant to also be able to advise, and then he talked to me about it and decided that Rec has spent more time on like some of these charity selections, and the charities that he personally donates to, he will donate to anyway. So like he doesn't need the Triton help for it because it's medium-sized organizations. So yeah, that was the large kind of like bigger thing. Then of course Bill donating as well, like as part of the whole event was fantastic. I very happy there. Outside of it, I think at this point most people know of effective altruism and Rec Charity. I mean, no, most people still don't know obviously about it. It's not like, oh, these are super known terms, but at least like within the high stakes world, which is where it makes more sense to fundraise if you only have a limited amount to fundraise with. Then there, the people that would be interested had the opportunity to get interested. So we have some people who like donate every now and then whenever they can. And outside of it, we don't think there is much room within the poker world to push it further. That said, the Double Up Drive is doing great work in like a very similar direction now as well, like donating to very similar organizations and doing like a yearly matching challenge.
Yes, shout out to Dan Smith, by the way, on doing that. By the way, Alan Meltzer here versus Tom Dwan. We were having some spotty connection issues, but I hope you guys are still with us here. Full house here for Dwan on the river against Meltzer with 220K in the middle. Let's see if Meltzer pays off whatever Dwan's going to bet here.
Let me check real quick if
I'm all in.
Liv is on the phone.
And Dwan has just announced he's going all in. Wow.
There it is from Tom Dwan.
Dwan do this before.
There is all in. First time tonight?
Overbet. He's measuring Alan Meltzer, and he thinks Alan might call. I think he thinks Alan has ace-king. That's why he's doing this.
You don't have to count it. I'm going to call.
There you go. He calls.
Oh, boy.
He says, I'm going to call. He calls.
Wow.
You got it?
Wow.
With that hand, Tom Dwan, who was stuck about 250,000,
100.
goes into the plus column. He's winning about 40,000 now. He has won with every group on this season of high-stakes poker.
Unbelievable.
I got him at 2.
What an incredible hand right there from Tom Dwan. Like Gabe said, he was down 250K, and then this hand brought him back into the plus, up 40K, which goes to show that playing the style that he plays definitely will create some insane swings as Igor is trying to figure out why his internet is going haywire. I'm just going to let you guys know that very soon after this stream ends, at noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time, or 9 p.m. Central European time, Brent Hanks and Jeff Platt will be live with the PokerGo action of the Super High Rollerable online series, a final table led by Victor Blom. So don't miss any of the action. It's going to be for free on PokerGo and on Facebook. So you can watch high-stakes tournaments with more than $500,000 up for grabs right after this stream. Igor, as we get towards the end of the show, let's take a few more questions from the chat. There's a few people extremely eager to get your thoughts. So let's do a few quick hitters here as Gabe and AJ are doing some awards. I'm going to just pause it right here to have something to look at with regards to...
Yeah, we... sorry about the internet. Liv was online after all. We rented out a farm, and it's pretty spotty out here.
It's all good.
It's barely good enough to like watch Netflix, I guess.
Oh wow. Okay, let's see. We have a few more questions here from the chat. SLL Greco is saying, when I started playing poker, there was a 10 big blind like rule in tournaments where you start shoving hands around 15 to 10 big blinds. I read books now saying it's around 5 big blinds. So Igor, what's your thoughts on that? We're going to take a few of these questions and to get some quick answers.
I mean, there's no rules in poker, which is a game that is like, it's more fluid than that, basically. Like, there is no strict rule at 10 big blinds you do only this and not before or only after. It's you jam more hands the shorter you are, fewer hands the deeper you are. But that said, there are some hands you jam at for 20 blinds. On the button, you can jam ace-8 off, and it turns out that that's often the best play. Then, yeah, like for 10, 15 blinds, you can also limp, actually, as well. Like, it's not only right to jam. So it's a bit more complex than that. If you want to have a simplified rule, I guess if you're under 10 blinds, you jam. There's then only jams played, but for anything above above 9 blinds, usually there is also a limp or a min raise as part of the game.
A question from Tina Noel. He's saying, Igor, I need some advice. I recently had my biggest score ever, and ever since I've been on a massive downswing, running super below EV. I didn't move up in stakes. Should I take a break, or should I just keep playing through?
You had a massive downswing, and
after a big score.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that happens pretty often. I guess one of the reasons is, I mean, the task is probably to observe yourself and see if you're still making decisions in a similar fashion as you were doing them before. It's very easy when you've won to kind of get a bit more lax and just like, act differently. And you shouldn't, obviously. Quite the opposite. Probably you play higher, so you should be even more focused and play even better. So maybe it's time to take a break. Yeah, I think it's always good to take a break and reassess. You should probably do it as well, like not only when you're losing, but also when you're winning sometimes. Just like take a few days break, check out what you're doing. Liv gave a talk actually, which includes this one topic where she talks about her own past of like having won in Remo. And then afterwards, for the next year, pretty much just spewing around and not really like trying to be good anymore.
So it is good sometimes to put the brakes on, take a step back, and maybe reassess. That's very good to know. All right, a couple more here. Let's see what we have on Facebook. Shout out, by the way, to everyone watching on both platforms. Let's see. Covered that basically. If you guys missed any of the action, by the way, please feel free to go back in time and rewatch this broadcast. We covered a lot of questions from the chat on this broadcast here. Let's see what I have here. Shout out to Michael, by the way. What's up, bro? Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
I think especially like just more on the previous question, like if there is any silver linings to be found in this quarantine, I think like one of them is that you get to, you're like forced to
take a step back and look at some things anew. And it's often easier to change behavior when there is also some other change. So like in terms of building new habits, this is a great time to try, I think. And one of those should probably very well be, if you're playing poker, to put into your schedule some study time, to put into your schedule some review time as well, outside of just wanting to play.
Right. All right. People who are asking all these questions here, really appreciate it. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends. Let them know that we're doing this twice a week. I have a new pro every single time we watch a new episode of High Stakes Poker or Poker After Dark, or maybe even some old WSOP final tables. So plenty of action to still be covered. And Thursday, I'll be joined by Maria Ho. We'll be live at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I know it's the middle of the night in Europe, but you can catch it on demand the following morning if you want to tune into that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then
people are still awake middle of the night nowadays, right?
That's true, actually. There's
timing just shifted. No one has to go to 9 a.m. work anymore. Well, some people do, fortunately, but yeah, many don't work from home.
Time is just a concept. Final question here for you, Igor, from Julian. He's saying, at what point did you want to go pro? Like, where were you realizing, like, okay, this is something more than just a fun side gig while I'm still in school?
It was a mixture of, for one, as I said, I was like, for consistently making a decent side income or great side income for me as a student. So it looked like I would be able to do that. And also it was helped by me being a very bad student at the time and just like not taking all of my classes, not kind of starting to slack, in part due to poker, in part because, I don't know, like just theoretical mathematics wasn't the thing I was actually that excited about. Apparently I wanted the applied version more. So the opportunity presented itself, and then I tried it out and it worked out.
All right, well, that sounds like the right way to do it. Just if it works, keep building on it. Igor?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a different time, though. I do want to, it's just important, I think, to reiterate. It was way, way, way easier then when I got into it than it is today, as like many have heard, but it is true. Like it depends, actually. Like it was easier in terms of there was more money to be gotten. But at the same time, the tools for learning are better nowadays. So it depends on what type of person you are. If you're someone who is good at sitting down, studying, and has like good behaviors of that sort, then you can still get into poker nowadays and like make a decent living with it. But then you probably can make a decent living doing something else as well, and you can go up higher and like probably create more and achieve more doing that. That said, I think poker is great nowadays because you have so many opportunities to play online, like a variety of tournaments. But the ideal situation is probably that poker is not your main thing, that if you start only to do it now, but like play poker in your free time. It's a great hobby. Yeah.
All right, I love that. On that note, this was Run It Back with Igor Kurganov. Thank you guys all so much for watching. He is Kurganov Igor on Twitter. I am at Remco Rinkema if you want to give me a follow and let me know who I should have on the show next. Maria Ho coming up on Thursday. And right after this, in half an hour time, Brent Hanks and Jeff Platt, Super High Rollerball online series, final table, more than 500K up for grabs. Victor Blom in the streets battling with the new kids on the block. Igor, thanks once again so much for being on the show. Much, much appreciated. And you know, we'll have you on again soon, or maybe in a few months, and then you can pick whatever you want to watch. So maybe there's a specific episode that you were on.
I actually would have picked High Stakes Poker. Oh, like, I mean, I would have picked Rick and Morty, but like if it's not something random, then I would have picked High Stakes Poker probably. Yeah. It's good.
All right, thanks you guys all so much for watching. We'll see you on Thursday.
All right. See you.